What are the three most common mistakes in hiring remote team members, and what are the solutions to avoid those mistakes?
Three most common mistakes that I see. So, number one is when people rush the process. Typically, when entrepreneurs and business owners come to hire their first virtual assistant, it's normally long after they should have hired their first virtual assistant. So they're absolutely snowed under. They're absolutely maxed out. They've got tasks coming out their ears, to-do lists everywhere, and they need help. And so hiring a virtual assistant is now one more massive task that's on their list. So maybe they get a good enough job post out there. Maybe they get it onto a good enough job site, and then they start interviewing it. And then it's like the first one that's good enough, right? And it's like, oh, they'll do. Let's just give them the job. Let's get going. And that's a bit of a recipe for disaster. You can get lucky, but it's not ideal. So that's the first mistake, is when people rush it. A little bit of time in this process, a little bit of time at this stage, is going to pay massive dividends later. So really, really, it's important to kind of hire slow and fire fast, is the kind of the typical saying. But yeah, definitely kind of hire slow, or hire a little bit slowly. So that's the first mistake. Second mistake is not having a clear agreement in place with your new hire. So, if you were employing someone locally or with a big company, you'd have a contract of employment. Very, very standard. All too often in the remote world, people don't do this. And it's really, really simple. And all you need is a 1 or a 2-page kind of service agreement. It's typically what we use, what we recommend people to use. And the purpose is, all it is just to set expectations. It's just to make sure that both sides know how much you're going to pay, when you're going to pay, how you're going to pay, setting expectations around things like confidentiality and notice periods. Just very, very basic things that are super simple to do, that just get the relationship off on the right kind of start. You always want to kind of trust people, but there's some things, especially where it's around money and salary, that it's just much better to just get it down on paper. So always have an agreement. And lots of people kind of tend to skip that, and then not often find out later on that there was just some misunderstanding. And when there's misunderstandings about money and salary, it always gets a little bit kind of a little bit tense. So you can avoid that with a simple 1-page kind of simple service agreement. And then the third mistake is around onboarding. So when someone starts working for you, you need to put the time in to onboard them effectively. You need to really kind of be almost overly intentional. So if someone was working in an office with you, for instance, you're going to see them when they come in the morning. Maybe you're going to have a cup of coffee with them. Maybe you're going to see them at lunchtime in their first week, and you might, just spend that kind of natural time, or stop by their desk. When people are remote, those kind of almost organic kind of meeting points and meeting times just don't happen. So you have to put the time in. So think carefully to yourself before they start. What systems do they need access to? What things do they need to learn? What documents do they need? And what guidance do they need from you, in order so that they can, do their job effectively? It's really important for you to figure out what you want and how you like to work. So here at Jobrack, I have a ways of working document that we share with all the team. That's just open about, right from little tiny things like in the morning when you start work, or the afternoon, depending on your schedule. Just jump in Slack and say good morning or good afternoon. Say, hey, it's just nice to know when people are working. And not from a big brother sense, just from a let's have a chat and let's know who's working, just like you would if you're in an office. Right down to kind of really, really detailed things like, when you're sharing a Google document, this is how we like you to do it. Always set the link to be open to anyone in the team. Things like that, that if they're not done, they're just minor annoyances. So, figure out what's important to you, and set those clear expectations. So yeah, they're the main things. So don't rush the hiring process, have a clear agreement, and make sure to do a really good job and just kind of spend some time on the onboarding.